All right. Welcome to the Game or Die podcast. This is episode 65. I, of course, am your host, Ryan Moore, and I have been playing a lot of video games in the past few weeks here in the beginning of January for 2023. So I just kind of want to dive right into the games because I've beaten, just straight up finished, over 8 games so far in January. Trying to probably make up for last year since I finished the least amount of games. And I talked about that on the previous episode, the Game of the Year for 2022 podcast. So you can go listen to that, which is about 3 hours long. Then you can listen to this if you want to. But anyways, without any more rabbit trailing, I want to talk about the series that first got me started with video games for this year. Now, I have an absolute love for the rhythm guitar band type games. I'm talking, of course, about Guitar Hero and Rock Band. I remember when I first started playing Rock Band, the first time I played Guitar Hero. It was actually Guitar Hero 2. I did not get into Guitar Hero until a little bit later on in the series. So the second one on the 360 is what I played, or I believe it was the PS2. And then I got the 360 version for my first one that I personally owned. I remember our friend Chris Navarez actually came over to our house and brought over, I think it was the guitar. I think he might have brought over the PS2. I can't remember. I was never a big PlayStation guy, and this is when the 360 was already out. So I was like, why would I be playing previous gen video games and this weird guitar peripheral? I know myself. I know myself well enough to know that I cannot keep rhythm. I'm bad at it. It's just always been one of the issues that I've had in life is I can't keep a beat. It's why I'm not a musician. But for whatever reason, when he came over and he showed me Guitar Hero, and I think it was the second one, I was blown away by it. I think I borrowed it. I can't remember. So if Chris ever listens to this, if he wants to tell me if I borrowed it from him or if I just straight up bought mine for the 360, I remember playing it and falling in love with it, even though I could barely do it on easy. I was just had such a hard time right from the get-go with matching my fingers and the strum bar to the beat, basically, and the rhythm. And so it wasn't until a little bit after I got good enough to bump it up to medium. And I think I beat the game on easy. Then I beat it on medium. And I stayed at medium for quite a while until I owned it on 360. I used to work at Geek Squad, Best Buy at the time. And so when that game came out, I just basically bought it from work and then went home that day and just, I dived deep into that game. And my favorite songs on Guitar Hero 2 were Iron Maiden's The Trooper, which was exclusive to the 360 version. And then some of the bonus songs like Jordan from Buckethead, Trogdor from Homestar Runner, which was another bonus song, and Limousine, their song Because It's Midnight or Cause It's Midnight. I can't remember how it's spelled, but basically from Homestar Runner as well. Those were those songs that like I just played over and over and over again. YYZ by Rush was another one. As much as I hate the song, it's always sticks in my mind whenever I'm talking about Guitar Hero, which is Cheap Trick's Surrender. Man, there's so many good songs on that series. So basically, what I'm trying to say is I love that series. And when Harmonix actually moved on, I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but when they moved to Rock Band, I was thinking about it as I was kind of preparing for this podcast. It's definitely the game that I've dumped the most time into out of any game ever. Like some people are like, oh, I played WoW for, 14,000 hours or whatever. I played Rock Band for like a decade. For like 6 or 7 hours at a time, sometimes in certain nights. So I've definitely dumped, and I don't play games on repeat, but that's game you can't really repeat. You just play it. And so that's one of the few games. But anyways, let me talk about the actual series in progression. So what I did for the first week of January. So I got sick right after Christmas this last year, and I did not even feel well enough until maybe the first week into January. It was over a week of me being sick, and I was just like, my voice was hurting and all that. And so I didn't really want to play anything for the first couple of days. And I wanted to hit the ground running with January. I wanted to start just like I did last year, where I started on January 1st. I started playing a game and I finished it on the 2nd. And I believe that was Lake, again, which I talked about in the previous podcast, which was a really good game. But for whatever reason, I just could not muster up the energy to devote myself to, a new game. And I'll talk about this a little bit later on too, but there's a game of the month that I wanted to play that we agreed upon. And so it was just one of those things that I did not get into very much. So I started work again, and I just was wanting something to play. And I don't know why, but I was messing around with some emulators, and for messing around with emulators when I'm kind of testing stuff, I have like 4 or 5 games per emulator or system that I really, use to get into really quickly, load up a save state, make sure all the button combos are correct. And I just started playing the first Guitar Hero. I think it was I wanted to get into streaming music a little bit more. And so I've done actually a couple of streams over the last couple of weeks where if you're watching me, I got my Guitar Hero guitar here from Rock Band 4 that I hook up to my PC and play a game called Clone Hero. And so I wanted to mess around with that. And so I just loaded up Guitar Hero 1 on the PS2 emulator, and I just started playing it. But for whatever reason, the PS2 version with these guitars don't really work very well. That emulator just does not recognize the button presses properly. And so I actually used a controller, which I played through a couple of these games a few years ago. It was back in 2019, I believe. And I played through a couple of the games with the controllers. It's not fun, or it's not the way that you want to. It's kind of hard, and if you want to do hard and expert, which is pretty much impossible on a controller, the button combos or the mapping is a little bit weird. So you've got the green button on shoulder 1, or the shoulder button, left shoulder button. You've got red on the left trigger. You have blue on right shoulder button, and then you have yellow and then blue. I gotta look at this now. Okay, so you got green on the red shoulder button. Wow. Green on the left shoulder button, red on the left trigger, yellow on the right shoulder button, and then blue on the right trigger. Man, I'm sorry. I apologize for messing that up. My brain. But anyways, you know what I'm talking about. You basically use your fingers on the triggers and shoulder buttons as the button combos. You don't have to strum, which is really nice. So you can actually play through the game pretty easily. And then they map the orange button to the A button on the controller, or the X/cross on a PlayStation controller. So I just played through Guitar Hero 1 on medium, and I had a really fun time. And it didn't take me that long. It took me a single evening. So then I was kind of in the groove. I was like, ooh, I want to play a little bit more. And I don't think I've ever played through the Guitar Hero 2 or PlayStation 2 version of Guitar Hero 2. So I played that, and I just started going in that path that I normally do when I play video games. I go in sequential order. So I played through all of Guitar Hero 1 with a controller. Then I played through all of the PS2 version of Guitar Hero 2 with a controller. And then I dived into the game that I haven't played in a very long time. Guitar Hero Encore Rocks the 80s, which is the stepgap game that they did in between transitioning from Guitar Hero and leaving the PlayStation 2 into the 360 new generation era and creating Rock Band. For whatever reason, Harmonix did this middle 80s game and then left and did their own Rock Band game. And it's a bummer because that only came out on the PS2. And this is, again, at a time when Guitar Hero 2 was on the 360. And then I had to buy the previous gen version, not just because it was a Guitar Hero game, but because it was 80s music, which I loved. And there are some of my favorite songs locked to this game. They never came out as DLC. They never came out as on any other platform. And it was such a bummer. But I remember there was the summer that this game came out. And I loved it. I played it so much. I devoured this game. So it holds a special memory in my heart. It was at a time where I was going through a lot of transitions in my life where I left my parents' house. I moved across the country, or partially across the country, at least 1,200 miles away from my family and friends. And I was just completely alone in a new city by myself. And I really got to love and play this game so much during that time that I was alone that I just kind of created a special bond with this game. And I think it definitely has a lot of flaws because, like the original Guitar Hero and 2, most of 2, I believe, maybe all of it, and this game, they're all cover bands that do this stuff. They do a pretty good job for the most part, but it is cover music as opposed to the real original recordings. And again, this is something that a lot of people forget when you haven't been in this, time for you haven't thought about this for a very long time, is because we all forgot that the reason why Rock Band was so spectacular when it came out was because every single song on the disc was an original master track recording that they got. And that was one of the marketing bullet points for that game. Nowadays, I mean, even though the series that instrument series or genre of games has come and died and then came back and then died again, it still is something that we forget. So I thought that was really, really interesting, is that, oh, that's right, all these original Guitar Hero games have cover bands making all the music. So like when you hear Surrender, or when you hear Iron Maiden or something like that, or Queen, or whatever it is, it's all cover bands, and a lot of people forget that. But I played through Guitar Hero Encore Rocks the 80s as the third game in the series, and then I moved on to Guitar Hero 3. Now, this is where it got a little bit tricky for me. My wife came in while she was watching me play this game, and she's like, "You've been playing this game for like the last 3 days." And I said, "No, I haven't. I've been playing this series for the last 3 days. I played different games every day. I played Guitar Hero 1 on Monday, Guitar Hero 2 on Tuesday, Guitar Hero 3 or Encore on Wednesday. And now I'm playing Guitar Hero 3, which is technically the fourth game, on Thursday. I beat every game every day. Like I played through an entire game in one day. Again, because I was sick, because I was off for work. Our work is actually, we have seasons where it gets crazy, and it's about to get really crazy. So I'm going to be gone for pretty much the next 6 months. But The beginning of January is just always really, really slow for us. So I had the time to play through these games, and my wife has a lot of other stuff going on. So she's doing her thing, I'm doing my thing, and I got to play through this series, and it was super, super fun. But she was like, "You're playing with a controller. Don't you want to play with a guitar?" And I said, "Yeah, but the thing is a little bit weird. I'm going to spend a little bit more time playing around with it because I just got so sucked into the game that I didn't mind playing with the controller, using the triggers and shoulder buttons and all that." So it was fun. It was interesting, but it was something that I knew I could play better with the actual guitar, and I could have more fun with the actual guitar. So I did a little bit of research going, why the heck is the PS2 version not letting me play this, this guitar? It's hooked up, it recognizes it on my PC. What's going on? So I did a little bit of research, and the PlayStation 2 emulator had a big, big update, and that's the version that I have about a year ago or so. And with that new update, it doesn't, they didn't transfer the controller stuff very well. And then going back to an older version that I also had, it wasn't working for whatever reason. So I did a little bit more research, and I found out that the PS3 versions, once you get into Guitar Hero 3, the PS3 versions are the ones to play, because now the PS3 emulation has gotten to a point where every game that was released on that system is playable in some fashion, which is really, or launchable at least. I can't remember the news story. It happened a while ago, but that's kind of the thing that they made a big bullet point on, was this is now playable with every, incompatible with every game released. So I loaded up the PS3 version and I started playing that, but that was after I got to, after I finished Guitar Hero 3. I played that on the PS2. I played the Guitar Hero 3 version on the PS2. And then I went to the PS3 version for the fourth game in the series, which I believe is World Tour. Now, it was really weird. Again, this is a lot of stuff that people forget. It's been a while. I don't think it's been that long. In my mind, it doesn't feel like that long. 2007 does not feel like decades ago. It feels like maybe 7 or 8 years ago to me. I know that's not actually the case, but it doesn't feel that long to me. I remember vividly in my mind 2007, the day Rock Band and Guitar Hero 3 dropped and released. So this is, again, what a lot of people forget. Guitar Hero 3 was developed by Activision and Red Octane, while Rock Band split and did their own thing, and they released around the same time. I don't remember if it was day and date, this exact same day, but it was like within a week of each other. And Guitar Hero 3 stayed on the strict path of, you're playing rock and roll songs that are designed for the guitar, and that's it. That's the only instrument that we've got, the guitar. And when Harmonix split from Activision, they did Rock Band. That's when they introduced the microphone for singing, the guitar, the bass, and the drums. So it created this whole, extra layer of these rhythm games, which blew Guitar Hero 3 out of the water in every single aspect. You look at Guitar Hero 3, and then you play just one song of Rock Band, and you go, the presentation, the song lists, the amount of energy and, care that was put into Rock Band is just so far above and beyond anything that Guitar Hero ever tried to do. And especially when you had Guitar Hero 3 and Rock Band sitting on a shelf next to each other, and you were going, which one should I buy? It was like a laughing joke. Like, why would anyone ever play Rock or Guitar Hero 3 when you've got Rock Band? So I don't remember playing that much of Guitar Hero 3, but I did finish it because I was so entrenched into that genre at that time when it came out that I said, I'm going to play it. I think I rented Guitar Hero 3 from GameFly, but I bought Rock Band. So I played through Guitar Hero 3, and then I moved on to World Tour, which is the fourth game in the series. And that's when they jumped on this is a party game now. You've got microphones, so it's basically karaoke. You've got guitar, bass, and then a drum set as well. And the drum set was a little bit different than the Rock Band drum set, which was interesting because they had the cymbals. Rock Band didn't incorporate cymbals until Guitar Hero 2, or sorry, Rock Band 2. And the cymbals were basically just additions to the drum set, but nothing on the gameplay indicated anything different. You can just use them as whatever. So you could hit the hi-hat, yellow cymbal, and it would still produce a drum beat if that's what the game was going for, if that's what it was showing you on screen. So you can kind of interchange between yellow drum pad and yellow hi-hat cymbal, and it would produce the same note, whatever the game dictated. But anyways, getting off on a little bit of a tangent there. Then I played Guitar Hero 4 World Tour. And this is something that I never played through. I never played through all of World Tour or the fifth game, which is called Guitar Hero 5, or the sixth game in the series. And that's exactly what I did over the last week and a half or so, couple weeks. So I played all of World Tour, and World Tour is interesting, and I think it is the best Guitar Hero game. Not just because they added in the microphones and the drums and all that. It's because the presentation is just much better in pretty much every aspect compared to Guitar Hero 1, 2, 3, Encore. I think the set list is actually really well done, except for a few selections. There's a couple where I went, why is it this way? This is super weird that they're putting this stuff in. They do some boss battles. They do some custom songs with singers, so they do motion capture and facial capture, and basically like they put Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins in. They put I know Kurt Cobain is in 5, but he's not in 4. Zakk Wylde, from Ozzy's band / I think it's Black Motorcycle Club or whatever. And then they do a couple other, famous people that show up. And so that was really interesting going through that game because I never played it before. Also, for the fact that, and this is the biggest and best reason to own World Tour, is because they did 3 Tool songs. And Tool hasn't been in any of the other games. They did 3 Tool songs that were exclusive to this game, and the stages aren't normal, people playing on a stage and you got a crowd cheering and all that. They do these weird designed worldscapes that are exclusive to the Tool songs, and they feature all the imagery from the cover art of their band, basically, in their albums. And so I thought that was really cool. I used to, at least, really, really love the band Tool. I thought they were amazing. I've never heard anything else like them before. And I've actually been listening to them over the past week or so, just going through their catalog and going, oh yeah, that's right. I remember this song and this song and this song. I'm not as into them as I used to be. I was really into them in high school and college. But after that, and they haven't put out as many albums after either. The last one that they did was in 2006, which was, I think, 10,000 Days. And then they didn't release an album until 2019 or 2020, somewhere around there. And so it's like, dude, you didn't release an album for like almost 15 years. Like, that's ridiculous. So I really think that the Tool songs are super special, and that's that game, and that's what makes the game really, really interesting. Then, after I finished World Tour, then I played Guitar Hero 5, and that's what it's just called, straight up Guitar Hero number 5. And I played this at the store that I actually used to own, and I never finished it, but the the level of production values that are in the graphics are just cranked up such a notch above what World Tour and Guitar Hero 3 and all that stuff is. It's just incredible. Like you watch it and you go, "Ooh, this looks really nice." They put a layer of motion filter blur on that I usually kind of hate, but it looks really interesting here. And then after I finished that, then I went through Guitar Hero 6, which is called Warriors of Rock. And they changed it up completely differently with the campaign where you are basically playing all the characters that have been in the games before. You've got Axel Steel, which is like the big burly dude with the leather or the denim jacket. Izzy Sparks. I think Izzy's in there. I can't remember. Um, You've got like Casey Lynch, Judy Nails, all those characters from the series. And they basically go through a transformation and become like these monster robot things. And then you battle a big, gigantic kaiju monster at the very end. It was just lame and stupid. I hated the the whole outer layer shell of the game, but the songs are pretty good. Like the set list songs that they choose, most of them are pretty good. So I had a fun time with it. But at the end, I went, "Ooh, boy, I think I'm burnt out of this." And that was pretty much the last Guitar Hero after the last Guitar Hero that they made until they made Guitar Hero Live, which I did play through. I do own the guitar somewhere. It might be in the back. But basically, that's one of the ones where I just they went off on such a different tangent, and it was just like, and with the guitar being completely different where it has like 3 rows on the top, 3 rows on the bottom. Really interesting stylistic choice. And especially with the fact that they did all live motion capture, footage, like they basically shot concerts and then had a special camera rig to recreate each concert in different layers. So, like when you first start out and the crowd's just like, yeah, whatever, you got people checking their phones and stuff like that. And then when you get into combos, it cranks it up. And the pretty much seamless transition from those, from you're doing good, kind of like almost parappa, like where you rocking good, you rocking cool, you rocking bad. Basically those different layers of how the game works is just really interesting, the way that they set it up, because they built this motion capture rig to perform the exact same movements for the song. So the band would play the same song, you know, 3 or 4 times in a row, and this camera would sync it up so that when you started dropping and doing bad, it would fade into the crowd, like reacting the proper way. Oh, you're doing bad. So people pulling out their phones again, booing you, thumbs down. And then when you start, nailing combos, they get hyped up and amped up, and then everyone's bouncing around and jumping. And it's not cut in a way that you would go, oh, it's an abrupt cut. You rapping good, you rapping bad. It's, oh, it's moving in and transitioning. It's a really cool way of doing that game. It's just not something that I wanted out of a Guitar Hero game. So I did play through that, but I didn't play through it this year because I don't even know how I would get that game to work on an emulator. I don't think it does yet. So I would have to bust out my 360 or my Xbox One, which I have hooked up, and I totally could. I have the game, sitting on the shelf, but I don't want to play that game. I don't remember liking most of the songs. The service is all shut down too, so like half the songs don't work. It's a whole mess. So I played through the Guitar Hero series pertaining to Guitar Hero 1 on PS2, Guitar Hero 2 on PS2, Guitar Hero Encore Rocks the 80s on PS2, Guitar Hero 3 on PS2. That's 4 titles right there. Then I moved on to the fourth one, Guitar Hero World Tour, then Guitar Hero 5, then Guitar Hero 6, which is called Warriors of Rock. And that's where I stopped it. And then I've been doing a little bit of Clone Hero on the PC while streaming it and singing, which is super fun too. So if you ever want to check out my streams, go for it because it's pretty interesting. I used to do it at the store all the time. I'm a little bit more self-conscious now than I was back then. while singing, especially streaming it online to a bunch of, strangers and singing out into the void. But man, it's so fun. And when I sit there and I just play the guitar, I'm having a fun time, but I want to sing. But if I'm just sitting in in the living room with no microphone, I'm just sitting there. I want to sing, but I feel weird if I'm singing it without a microphone, without an audience. So that was one of the really fun things that I did at the store was we would have rock band concert nights and tournaments and stuff like that, and just getting out in front of real people singing and playing these stupid little plastic instruments was just so much fun for me. It's a time in my life I'll never forget. And so that's why I kind of wanted to go through this series is to kind of relive and recapture some of those memories and go, that's right. This is still fun. And Clone Hero is just so above and beyond anything because of the way that they, got all the tracks from all the games. So I have every Guitar Hero, Rock Band game, and custom songs in this one list that I can pick and choose from, and I can sort them out. And so that's kind of what I've been doing over the last couple of days is going through the catalog of songs and replaying the ones from Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and then playing some new stuff as well, and singing and streaming. So that's really fun. That's kind of what I've been doing. The next game that I have been playing actually started yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening. So yesterday was the Xbox Game Development Direct, and I hate the fact that everyone's kind of latched on to the term direct for these internet web press conferences. But that's okay. That's not that big of a deal. What I care about is the game announcements. What is coming out and when can I play it? That's really what I care about. And Microsoft did their first one, which is the first one for the entire year for the industry, which is great. And they announced this game called Hi-Fi Rush. And I didn't watch the whole thing. I just literally skipped through, probably watching about 45 seconds in total. And then at the very, very end, I just had in the background while I was multitasking for like another 5 minutes. But they talked about 4 games. They talked about Elder Scrolls Online, Forza Motorsport, which is not the fun one, the super boring Forza, which I couldn't care less about. Then they talked about Redfall, which does not interest me at all. And they talked about Hi-Fi Rush. The difference is, like, all these games that they just talked about are going to be released in the later half of the year, or I think Redfall comes out in like May, which is like 4.5 months from now. So like, who cares? But they announced this game called Hi-Fi Rush, which is made by the same studio. I believe it's Tango Software Works, and they are the ones that did The Evil Within, which is a horror game. It's Shinji Mikami and his studio, I believe. And they announced this game called Hi-Fi Rush, which is kind of like a Bayonetta, Devil May Cry style game, action hack and slash platformer. And I did not even see a lick of gameplay about this, but my friend Jeff texted me. He's like, hey, have you heard about this game? And I was cooking dinner at the time, so I was just hearing the text message playing in my headphones while I was cooking burgers. And he's like, man, you got to try this. And then my friend Brady was like, oh, that looks really cool. And so after dinner, I installed it because I was like, dude, what is this game that they're talking about? And I was like, oh, it's out? And it was just announced. So it was announced and then immediately released. No one knew about this game. And it's out now and you can play it. And I've been playing about 5 hours of it so far over the course of yesterday, last night, and today. And holy crap, it's so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. So what this game really feels like is a mixture of a modern Dreamcast style game that is like Sunset Overdrive, Devil May Cry, and maybe a couple other types of games. The art style is so vivid. The colors are so not hyper saturated, but saturated just a little bit above reality, that it just everything pops, everything stands out, everything is moving and bouncing because the whole gimmick is you attack on a beat. So there is this underlying musical beat going on throughout the entire level, just like Metal Hellsinger from last year. There's this underlying music track, and when you get into combat zones, just like I believe Devil May Cry has this, because I've actually never played a Devil May Cry game, but I played the Bayonetta series, like I talked about in the last podcast. And they do these things that I actually don't like. I hate these combat, sections where you walk forward, you get entrapped, the entire area around you encloses you off so you can't move around. You're just stuck in this like square circle, and you have to fight these enemies until they all blow up, and then you get a score on how well you did. And I hate those because they're basically for people who are just going to replay the game and play that game until the end of time, and I don't care about any of that stuff. Scores are worthless to me in video games, except for Rock Band, except for in those type of games. But and even then, the scores don't really matter. I just want to have the stars. Did I 5-star it? Did I 4-star it? That's really what I care about, or 100% a song. But in this game, you have these combat arenas where you just get locked into the section, you beat the people, and then you get a score, scored D through S rank. So A is good, S is better than good. B, C, and D. Like if you did terrible, you get a D. But basically, the game is just a joy. The writing is, I thought I was going to just go, oh, it's this type of game. But the writing is actually really well done. The comedy is really well done. They don't write the jokes to just be jokes. They write it to further the story and enhance the characters, which is what most games don't do. And that's why a lot of people say, oh, comedy in video games is so hard. It's not that hard. It really isn't. It's just that people who write these games now all write like Marvel movies, where everyone has a one-liner. Everyone is just trying to get their one-liner in before the other person. And it's just like, you cannot write like that because that's not how real life is. This feels more like real life, but also having a moment to have the thought of, well, should I put this here, or should I have this character react to this or not? There is just so many little subtle things. There are some dud lines, but not the majority of them. The majority of the writing, the majority of the voice acting is just spot on. It's really well done, really well voice acted. And I have actually laughed at this game more than I did the entire year of games last year. The writing is well done, and these people need to be commended for it, for doing their job well, because so many people can't do their job well anymore. It's like when someone does it right, it stands out, which is really nice. So if you like the style of gameplay of like 3D platformers, from like the mid 2000s, if you like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta style, scoring to your combat, if you like pretty funny, good, joking around stuff like in the vein of a Double Fine or Tim Schafer game. I don't think it's that great, but I think there is some really good modern writing style in this game that works. And it's not that cringy type of feeling that you get where you're going, oh, you're just trying so hard to make this funny. No, it's actually really well done. And so I really like that. I really like that they took the time to craft these jokes to where it's not just pop culture, because there's no pop culture in this at all. It's not just, anime, even though it has that style to it. It is not just that stuff. It is so unbelievably a breath of fresh air in video games. And again, the graphics are just popping out of the TV. It is so cool looking. And then the fact that they interblend multiple visual animation styles. with the Arc System Works fighting games that have been released recently over the last 7 or 8 years. Blaze Blue, Guilty Gear, those Dragon Ball Z Fighters, all of those games have this weird three-dimensional cell shaded look to them, but they are in a 3D environment that still makes it look like a cartoon. And so you've got this three-dimensional cell shaded world and characters, but then when you get to certain sections or certain cutscenes, they jump to different styles of animation. And it kind of threw me off in the beginning when I first loaded the game up because it felt like, oh, you're just copying the style of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where it's got that kind of almost jerky motion, but it's in 60 frames per second, but the characters are moving at a different frame rate. And so it's a little bit off-putting at first, but it's not that bad. And it's so well done that it, you just forget about it 5 minutes into the game. And it just becomes like second nature. And you can't really tell the difference after that, except for in cutscenes, because again, they deliberately move from different style to different style. And so, holy crap, I think this game is absolutely amazing. And I highly, highly suggest that anyone who wants to can go check it out. It's on Game Pass. So it's basically free. And that's really what, got me to try it is like, and Jeff and Brady, they were saying, oh man, you got to try this game out. It looks really good. I'm like, dude, I don't have the money to spend on a game right now. Like, we got to, tighten our belts a little bit here. Everything's expensive now, but luckily it was on Game Pass. So when we have a subscription to that, so I loaded it up last night and just started playing, and I can't stop thinking about it. It is so stinking good. So Hi-Fi Rush, that game is absolutely phenomenal. It stole the month for sure, because nothing really is coming out right now. Tomorrow there's going to be a couple games, and then some other stuff, but we're still in the beginning of January where games are not being released yet. We're looking at mid-February is kind of when most things are going to start showing up. So that's actually kind of what I'm going to section off into the next segment. So I'm going to just take a quick moment here for a break and then be right back so that I can talk about what I'm looking forward to. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is what I'm looking forward to. And I tried doing a list of games and when they were coming out. There is the Internet Game Database, which is kind of like the go-to for, hey, what do you want to look up about a game? You use this. And they have a coming section, like a coming soon section. And I went through this and I realized, like, dude, there's not a whole lot of stuff that's showing up. And I don't know why, but I know there's more games than this, but 2023 is just going to be one of the, if not already, the biggest year in video game history from a release standpoint. Last year, The reason why 2022 was such a crappy year for video games is everything got delayed to 2023, and I have no idea why. Every week, you would hear about 2 or 3 big games that were in development that were supposed to launch, like mid to late 2022. And every time it was another delay got announced today, another delay got announced today, Starfield got delayed, all these games just got delayed and delayed and delayed. Every week, it was tiring. And so nothing came out last year. Everything got pushed to this year. And so it was a little bit kind of daunting looking at 23 pages of game releases for 2023 and going through and going, which ones do I know about? Which ones am I excited for? And which ones do I want to talk about on the podcast? So I wrote down a few of them. The games of 2023 for this year that are coming out. Tomorrow is January 27th, and 2 games are releasing. Nintendo actually announced yesterday, just alongside, Microsoft and their, direct thing, they announced that GoldenEye 007 is coming out, and I'm on the fence about this. One, GoldenEye is an awesome game, and it's fan-freaking-tastic. It's finally being released for modern consoles, which is the Switch and the Xbox. However, the Switch has online exclusivity, which is the dumbest thing in the entire world. This is a game that came out in 1997 on the Nintendo 64, one of the biggest games on that system and of all time for consoles. And the Switch, Nintendo locked down online gaming to their version of this game on a 2017 underpowered, basically almost dead console. That's stupid. That's dumb, and that's unfair. That's not playing nice, and that's against the consumer. This is why I hate Nintendo. Like, if you say, oh, Ryan hates Nintendo, yeah, I do. They make boneheaded decisions all the time. And it's not like, oh, they're goofy, they're Nintendo, they can do what they want. No, they're screwing over the consumer. Sure, they made a good console back in 2017. However, the Switch is underpowered, and it always has been from day one. Launch day, March 3rd, 2017. They released the Switch and Breath of the Wild. And when you get to Kakariko Village on launch day, that game ran terribly into single-digit frame rates in some cases. In the main Kakariko Village of the series, that's like one of the branded, game cities. And it ran terribly, because the Switch was underpowered and always has been and it always will be. And now we're getting a new game, and I'll talk about that in a minute, of Zelda. And I have no faith that that game is going to run really well, because we're 7 years later and the hardware hasn't changed. So it can't somehow get better performance. It's just going to get worse. Anyways, and their online sucks. And come on, why would they actually release this game on their crappy, subscription service? You're paying for nothing. They barely release their stuff. You have to pay the exorbitant amount of getting the Nintendo 64, DLC and all that stuff on their online subscription service. So you're paying more. You're barely getting anything for your money. And then I don't have any faith in their online service at all. I've never used it because I don't have faith in it. I have faith in Microsoft's, and we don't get that on Microsoft. And Microsoft, their version is also dropping tomorrow. And because it's a Rare game and they own Rare, and we've been in this weird licensing hell for the last 17 years or whatever, however long it's been since this game came out. But they were going to have this game. They're giving away the game for free as an update to anyone who owns their collection of rare games, which is called Rare Replay, which came out in like 2015. And it's a really good collection of rare games, and they're giving us that as an update for free. And it's going to be on Game Pass. Like, Microsoft is making all the good moves. Nintendo is making all the backwards moves. And it's just a bummer that we're here. Again, gamers, the consumers, the one who pay for this stuff, who want this stuff, the one that these companies are developing for, are the ones getting screwed in these deals. And it's just dumb, and it's all Nintendo's fault. There's no reason there should be online multiplayer exclusivity, because that's the main reason why people play that game. I don't, because I don't play multiplayer games. So I don't really actually have a horse in this race. But I'm on the side of, dude, I would love to play online multiplayer with my friends. We talked about it last night. Jeff texted our group and said, hey, oh my gosh, GoldenEye 007 is coming out on Friday. And I said, yep, but it's online exclusive to the Switch. And none of us want to pay for Switch online passes, because that's, like $50 a year for something we'll never use. And we get it for free on Microsoft, but Microsoft doesn't have that exclusivity deal. So screw us, right? The people who want to play the game. And it's unfair, and it sucks. And I did not mean to get on that rant, but good grief. Anyways, another game that's coming out tomorrow on January 27th is Dead Space Remake. And I've never played the Dead Space games. I hate the horror survival franchise games, or series of types of games, but I am interested in this one because it is a remake that, is so far removed from the original that hopefully they're going to improve on it. And it seems like the reviews that have been coming out this morning say it's a really good remake. And so I do want to play it. I just don't know when I'm going to have the time for it. And it's not on my I need to play this right now type of game, and I'm not going to have the time for it either. So if I get to it this year, I get to it. I hope I do, because I do want to play through that game. I know a lot of people love it, and I know it's supposed to be really, really well done. And a better remake version of it sounds great. The one game that I am actually really excited for is coming out a few days later on February 2nd, which is called Deliver Us Mars. And I talked about it way back in 2019 because that was a game called Deliver Us the Moon. And this is the sequel, Deliver Us Mars. And it's this weird game. I don't remember a whole lot of it, but third-person action, a third-person like storytelling game where you are this person in a spacesuit on the moon and you are trying to get back home. And you're kind of seeing the colonization that happened on the moon. Everyone kind of left Earth, colonized the moon, and then left or died or something. I can't remember exactly, but I remember really liking the game. So a sequel sounds great. And I believe that's coming out on Game Pass too. So I'm super excited about that. And that's on the 2nd of February. And then a few weeks later, February 21st is Atomic Heart, which I don't know much about. I haven't really paid attention to this game. I remember the trailer from a few years ago when they announced it, and that's it. Some people say it's like BioShock with the Soviet era. I don't know how true that is because we already had that game from Raven Software back in 2010, 12, somewhere around there, called, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on it right now. I just had it and now I forgot it. But there was a game by Raven Software in the early 2010s that was basically BioShock in Russia with some time management, but time machine type of deal going on. The real first game that is going to kick off this year for me, other than Hi-Fi Rush now, is Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is the sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. and that comes out in March 17th. And I am super excited about this game. The reason why is because, dude, Star Wars, I hate. I don't like the Star Wars franchise anymore because of what has been going on for the last couple of decades. The the churning out of the prequel trilogy really soured me on the entire series. And then when Disney bought them in like 2012, it was like, oh, hey, I have a hope that it's going to be good, because we were getting Marvel, Disney Marvel movies, which were just really good when they first came out. It was like really interesting. And if they were going to take the Star Wars franchise and basically do the exact same, then I was on board. But they have turned it into this just churning out of the new trilogy, which apparently everyone hates. I didn't have that big of an issue with it, but there are definitely some stuff where I'm just like, ugh. But they've done The Mandalorian, which is really good. They did the Book of Boba Fett, which I liked for the most part, and the Obi-Wan series, which I thought was actually pretty well done too. I'm not in love with them. I think the worst thing about the Star Wars franchise is the fans. The fans have taken the series and just ruined it for everyone with the way that they go about it. It's just so, oh my gosh, this is my life, and if you say anything about it, I'll kill you. And it's like, dude, you're taking this way too seriously. And there haven't been that many good Star Wars games as of late, too. The last one that I really remember was Star Wars The Force Unleashed 1. I never played 2, but 1 was such an interesting game. But that was in 2007 or 2000. It was 2008, and I didn't play the sequel. Squadrons is actually pretty cool, but when they did Survivor, it was like, or sorry, they did Jedi Fallen Order. It's like, oh, I don't like this character, but the gameplay, the very light, soft version, watered down version of Dark Souls really, really worked well with that game. And so a sequel that is just going to hopefully ramp everything up, which from what I've heard so far, sounds like it's doing really good and it's going to be really good. I'm super excited for. So I cannot wait for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And the reason why I'm pausing when I say that is because the way that they've titled this game is dumb. The actual name title of the game is Star Wars Jedi, not Star Wars Jedi, because there's a colon in a subtitle. So there's a tri-title, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So Survivor is the second one. I'm super excited about it. Then there's another game the same day, Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. Now, I think Bayonetta 3 soured me on the Bayonetta franchise completely. So I'm not sure if I'm really willing to give this a chance, but I might be. It's a very different game, and it seems like the game that they actually really cared to make and not the whatever Bayonetta 3 was, because good grief, that was a bad game. But I might, in a couple months, I might feel a little bit differently. And again, if I see it as this is the one thing that I really liked about Bayonetta 1 was that it seemed like there was lore, but it was a little bit hard to follow, but not too hard. But when they started doing the animes, when they did the second one and now the third one, and then they're doing this offshoot game, it's like, oh, you're going down the Kingdom Hearts road, and I don't want you to do that, please. Please don't do that. Like, Kingdom Hearts 1 was an interesting game. I had it on my top 10 games of all time list for years. And the reason why is because it took this concept of Disney and Final Fantasy, mashed them together, and made a really interesting story. But when they said, screw that, we're going to do this whole other thing. We're going to split the games off we're going to do one release on every console known to man. We're going to create a ZX Spectrum version of it, like an Amiga version of it. And then they're going to have confusing titles. You're not going to know which ones to play in which order. And they have nothing to do with the actual characters that you care about. It's going to be all this offshoot stuff that no one actually cares about. screw Kingdom Hearts at this point. I played 3 and I was so upset as I played through it. My wife and I were really excited because it took forever to come out. It was a numbered sequel. It was on modern hardware. And it was like, all right, cool. Kingdom Hearts 3. Let's find out what happened to Sora because he hasn't been in a game in probably 15 years. And it came out and it was just like so convoluted. You're supposed to know all these characters who have nothing to do with anything, and they're actually the main focus. And I got so mad. And that's what I feel like Bayonetta is going towards. So I hope it's not that way, but I feel like it's going to be. So I'm not really that excited about it, but I'm going to keep my eye on it. Then they have Resident Evil 4 Remake on March 24th, and this kind of bums me out for the fact that I don't like Resident Evil games, but I really enjoyed the remake of 2. 3 pissed me off. I thought I was getting a sequel to Resident Evil 2 Remake. I know it was a game on the PlayStation and the Dreamcast, but I was cautiously optimistic that it was going to be something interesting because I knew about Nemesis. I knew about Jill Valentine and all this. But man, when I played through Resident Evil 3 Remake and beat it in one sitting, I was pissed off. I went, that's it. And I know there's 2 different characters and you can replay and blah, blah, blah. No, that game's 6 hours long. It's not worth it. And it's a garbage game. I know Resident Evil 4 is the game to beat all other Resident Evils. I personally don't agree with that from what I've seen and played, but I always wanted to play it. And I think I've told this story, and I'm going to try and tell the smaller, condensed version of the story. I don't want to go too long on this podcast because there's a lot of other stuff I need to talk about. But when Resident Evil 4 first came out, it was a Wii game from what I remember, right? No, it was a PS. Man, I can't remember if it was a PS2 game first, then the Wii, or if it was a Wii exclusive and then came to the PS2. But it was away from Microsoft. Microsoft never got it. And so that basically guaranteed that I could never play this game because I wasn't going to go play a Wii game at the time. And I wasn't going to go play a PS2 game at the time when I had a 360. So I was just kind of, and I'm not into survival horror into the beginning. But my friend, man, he loved that series and he would always tell me about it. And I really wanted to play it. But then when the PC version of several years ago, back in like 2012, I think, 2011, 2012, the PC version was having some modders do a remake of it or an update, an HD update. So they were going through and doing like 4K or 1080p like textures on everything to make it look really nice. And I was like, dude, I'll just wait for this. And I think they just finished it or they haven't finished it yet. And this is over a decade later. And so like at some point I was just like, screw it. I'm not waiting anymore. I'm just going to play it on the PC. But then Oculus came out and said, we're making a VR version of Resident Evil 4. And it was like, holy crap. Okay. And this was back in, I think it released in 2021. In October of 2021, the VR version of Resident Evil 4 came out. And I bought it. I own it. And I started playing it. I just never finished it. And that's like my guilty thing. I feel bad I never finished it. Maybe I'll finish it this week. I've got a lot of free time. My wife's out of town. She just left this afternoon. So I've got like a week of doing stuff on my own that I don't have to be interrupted for other than taking care of animals. So I think that's what I might do with my time after I finish High Five Rush because that game is so good. But basically, they're doing an actual, modernized remake version, just like Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake. Now they're doing Resident Evil 4 remake. That comes out in late March, which I'm excited about. The next game is Crime Boss Rocky City, and I kind of put this on here just because I have no idea what to make of this. I saw when they had the trailer for it, I think it was the Game Awards. They did a trailer for this game, and it's got like Michael Madsen in it, and couple other people. Like, it's all like real life actors, and it's just like, what is this game? It's like wanting to be LA Noir and GTA. I'm not sure what to make about it. So I'm cautiously looking forward to seeing what is more about that game because I don't know. Um, man, there's some big heavy hitters here in May. May 12th, the day to beat, man. This is, as I'm stating it right now, January 26th at 5:32 on a Thursday. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom will most likely be my game of the year because I love Breath of the Wild with all my heart. I think it is one of the best games ever made. I think there is definitely issues with that game. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a perfect game. No game is perfect. There's issues with it, but the issues are so small and easily overlooked, and the way the game is presented, the way that it allows the players to do what they want when they want and how they want, and the openness of it, allowing players to go back into the game with the master mode and the Zelda DLC was a first thing with that game. Like, and the DLC was really good for the most part. Just, I think it is up there in the pantheon of the best games of all time, like bar none. If I would, I want to do, and I haven't done this yet. I didn't do it last year because, again, I got sick and I was going to do it at the end, but I just didn't feel so good. But I usually revise my top 10 list. Every year I kind of go through and go, does this still deserve to be up there? Is there something else that I can change out of this? And Breath of the Wild is up there. I think Tears of the Kingdom is just going to be hopefully more of what Breath of the Wild is, but even better. I hope the performance of the Switch doesn't degrade the game. I hope they don't make compromises on it because they chose to release an underpowered system and not do anything with it for 7 years. But I'm hopeful. I hope and I pray that that game is good because I want it to be. The next game is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Gotham Knights came and went, and it's a terrible game from everything that I've heard. I haven't played it, so I don't know if that's actually true or not, but from what I've heard and in the way that I know and feel about WB Montreal, which is the development studio that did Arkham Origins, I have no faith in Gotham Knights. I do have faith in Rocksteady. However, from the last few things that they one, I don't like the Justice League. I don't think that's the game that they should have made, and I'm almost 100% positive that it was more of a studio decision. And with Warner Brothers going just nuclear for all of this last year, I just don't know what is happening with that company to the point where I don't know what this game is going to be at this point. I want just another Batman Arkham game. Actually, I don't, because I think they finished it up. So I don't want Batman, but I want that style of game. I want the Rocksteady AAA experience. And the rumor was for years that they were doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. A Rocksteady Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game would have been the perfect pivot, because they could have done what like Arkham Knights is or what Suicide Squad's doing with multiple characters, swapping them in and out. And I saw someone create an Unreal 5 demo of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they're swapping, picking and choosing characters, and the characters are more based off of the 90s movies aesthetic, which was really, really cool and interesting. And they're in like New York City, and they got some Foot Clan, which are also from the original movies too. And it was just like, dude, this is really good. You create like actual mechanics around these characters and the combat, and you have a good storyline. Dude, this would be phenomenal. And that's what we were all hoping Rocksteady was working on. But they went with Suicide Squad, which is like this, this push of this group of characters that really no one cares about. I don't hear anyone ever talking about the Suicide Squad. They've been pushing Harley for so long now that even I am sick of that character. She is not a main character. She is a side character. And I love Harley. There was a time in my life that I was obsessed with that character, and I thought this was like the perfect character, and I was so enthralled with that character, but she has gotten overplayed, oversaturated the market to where it's just like, dude, I don't want another Harley. They have a Harley TV show, animated series that is just so not what that character is at all, and they've been pushing this, lesbian, storyline. Like, that's not that character. Stop changing that character and twisting her into something that she clearly was never actually meant to be. And just the agenda pushing, the politics in it, just everything about that character now is so, toxic to me that I don't really want to have anything to do with it. And they're making a Suicide Squad game, and it's just like, dude, I don't want to play as Harley. I want to play as Batman. I want to play as Nightwing. Give me a Nightwing game, man, because they're really pushing Nightwing as well in the comics. And they've just like finished up, I think, their Dark Crisis storyline. They basically said at the end of that Dick Grayson is the center of the DC universe. He's basically like the Superman, not power wise, but like morality wise. And he is the glue that will hold the Justice League together. The Justice League has been disbanded in the comics, and Bruce basically said, I'm not going to be a part of the Justice League. You are going to be the leader of the Justice League now. And it's like, dude, that's pretty big. Like, that's a big thing. And so having Suicide Squad game instead of like, clearly this has been the thing that I've been talking about DC for over a decade now. I've been saying it for so long. DC has a really big issue where they do not let people know what they're doing, and everyone is doing their own thing under the banner of DC. Comic writers are doing their own thing. The executives are doing their own thing. The movie studios are doing their own thing. The animated studios are doing their own thing. There is no cohesion between the groups. There is no one saying, hey, this character needs to be the same across the movies, the games, the TV shows, the comics. Harley is basically Deadpool now. And Bruce Wayne is dead, but not dead. And then he's here and he's not. They have 7 different Joker movies in production with all different Jokers, and no one is canon. Everything's canon, and something is and isn't canon. And it's just like, oh my gosh, stop it. Just calm down. And with this fire sale thing that's been going on with Warner Brothers, where they're part of DC now, or Discovery. So Discovery owns DC, and the boss of Discovery is basically slashing and canceling everything. They canceled Batgirl movie, even though it's already done, and they're removing all their own stuff from their own streaming service. And then I just saw this afternoon the two shows got canceled. I think Doom Patrol, who gives a crap, and some Titans, the Teen Titans, but older, I guess, just Titans TV shows got canceled. Like, I didn't even know those were a thing, or Titans I didn't know was a thing. I knew about Doom Patrol, and I would never watch that even if you paid me. But man, what the heck is going on? No one knows anything about that system. And so having the Suicide Squad game is just like, why? Like, there's so many other ways and properties. I really wish Rockstar got away from Warner Brothers. They really need to. And also with the games as live service, the games as a service model where there might be microtransactions. They're saying there's not, but I don't know. Again, I don't really pay a ton of attention to rumors, so I don't know what is and what isn't real, but who knows? All right. Just a couple more here. Street Fighter 6, which I'm not a fighting game fan of, but seems interesting to me. And then Diablo 4, which I played like 2 hours of Diablo 3, like back in 2016. and I was not impressed with it, and I don't think I ever will be. I just think I missed the Diablo train. I never played 1, I never played 2. I played 2 hours of 3 years after it was popular. 4 seems cool, but I have no idea if I'm going to like it or not, and I'm not going to spend $60 on it. If it's on Game Pass, I'll play it. And the last one is Starfield, which BioWare, no, not BioWare, sorry, Bethesda. I'm interested in it. I absolutely play it. I just have no idea if it's going to actually be good or not. I'm not a sci-fi person, so this game doesn't interest me that much. Skyrim and Oblivion and Morrowind, the Elder Scrolls series, my wife really loves. I enjoyed those games for what they were, but I'm not a fantasy person either. But man, Fallout 4, especially in VR, dude, sign me up. Give me Fallout 5. That's what I want. I just saw the pictures for Fallout, the TV show, and they'd have the Red Rocket gas station going up, and it's just like, okay, I really want to see how good this is. I hope the stories are good. I hope they don't just rehash the same story that's been told. I want something new, and I really hope they do a good job with it. Just like from what I've heard, the Last of Us series has been pretty good as well. I haven't watched it. I won't watch it until the series or the season at least is done, just because I don't have the time and I don't want to watch it on my own. And my wife and probably will want to watch it. I have no idea. I just haven't really given it any thought. Main issue with I have with that show, The Last of Us, is that I've already played the game, and apparently it's like a almost 1-to-1 direct, copy of the game. And even in certain scenes, they just copy and pasted the the cutscene into real life, and it's just like, I don't need or want that. I want the Last of Us TV show to be about other people and be well written. That's all I want. I just don't want the same. Like I'll play the game instead of watching the TV show. But that is the what I'm looking forward to of this year. I know it's a lot of stuff and there's more, but I'm going to take just another really quick break here and come back with some stuff for the last segment. All right. So the next segment, I don't like backlogs. I don't like talking about games as a backlog of games I've got to get to and games. I like thinking about them as a library. So my library of games, there's games that I want to pull off and play every once in a while. There's games that I own that I've never played through before or opened up. We all have books like that, right? And so I like thinking about the games that I want to play through as I have this collection, this library of games. And one game I just started playing through because I haven't played it in years. I haven't played it since like the early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s. Sorry. Just thinking about when the game came out. I haven't played it since the late 90s. Siphon Filter. Man, Gabe Logan and his swivelly hips. Dude, that game is really, really well done, and I wanted to play it. So I started it. I'm on the second level, and I'm just having a good old time with it. So I'm hopefully, and that's kind of what I was going to do. Like, I played through the Guitar Hero series, and then I was like, well, what else should I play? And then I was going to do Siphon Filter, but I started Siphon Filter and then things kind of got away from me. And then I played Hi-Fi Rush last night and I was like, dude, I got to play this. But I also kind of got paused because the last segment for the podcast is going to be the game of the month. So I got pulled away from Siphon Filter because I knew I needed to play and finish this game within the last week because my wife was going to Mexico, this week, and then we'll be past the end of the month, and I needed to play and finish this game. So January 2023's game of the month is A Plague Tale Requiem, and I played A Plague Tale for game of the month last February, and then they announced that the sequel was coming out at the end of the year. And I was like, oh, I just finished Plague Tale and I loved it. Plague Tale Innocence was the first game. So this sequel finishes up the storyline. It's nice that it's not just a trilogy, hopefully. And from what I've read from the developers, they said, we're sick of rats. We don't really want to do another Plague Tale. We're going to try and do something else. But A Plague Tale Requiem, to set it up, is the sequel to A Plague Tale Innocence, which is basically 14th century France. You play as Amicia, this, daughter of a lord in France countryside, and her brother Hugo, who has this weird disease, who's super sick. His mother's always, watching over him. And these rats come and devour everything. It's this plague of rats. And over the course of the game, you find out that Hugo has this blood infection in him over the bloodline of their family called the macula. And the macula is basically like this supernatural blood inside of him that gives him control over the rats. I'm super paraphrasing here because, again, this is all taking place in the first game. I talked about it last year while I was playing through it. So everyone who's listening to the podcast should already know that. If you haven't, you can go back to those episodes and listen to my thoughts on that. But I loved the game. I thought it was fantastic. And so they move the needle forward with the sequel and actually, give a wonderful end cap to the story of Amicia, the sister, and Hugo, the brother, who basically she's just trying to survive and save her brother. Her brother is infected. He's dying with this disease that, brings rats and kills just massive amounts of people in villages, decimates them. And holy crap, the technology, the game is beautiful, first off. So the graphics are unbelievably well done. Alongside the actual mechanics of the game, which are ramped up, the difficulty is so higher than what was originally set. The game I breezed through originally, the first game, I just flew through. This one, I had a really hard time in certain segments. My wife was watching me. She would, be like, oh, you need to go here. You need to go there. Try this, try that. And there was 15-minute stretches where I was just stuck retrying this encounter over and over again. I never got super pissed off, but there was definitely a few moments where I got frustrated where I was like, oh my gosh, come on. But this game is so wonderfully done, wonderfully well acted, heart-wrenching in the most deepest ways. You're just like, dude, this family has been through the ringer 7 times over. What else could possibly happen? And every time there's a little bit of a high, a little bit hope for these characters, they gets taken away from them. And it's just like, oh, my heart is just breaking for these characters. That is just like, what else could you possibly ask of these people? And the girl who does the voice actress for Amicia does some of the best line reads I've ever heard in a video game. It is so well done. It is so believable in the way that she feels exhausted. You feel exhausted for her. Her grunts, her moans, her just, oh gosh, like the way she almost weeps through certain scenes is just like, man, I'm watching art. I'm watching someone do their job so well that it is the veil of believability is just covering this game. Like you feel entrapped with them in certain scenes. And it goes a little beyond what I wanted for the game in certain points, especially near the end where I was just like, "Oh, this feels a little bit like you're going too far." You have that line of I believe what they call it is the man, I'm going to blow this and I can't believe that I'm losing the train of it right now, but basically you have this perception of believability in a story. And when something goes wrong, you go, yeah, that's possible, whatever, it's fine. But if something's so ramped up, like if you're watching Roadrunner cartoon, if you're watching the Looney Tunes and you're watching Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, runs out off a cliff and hangs there in midair, you have that believability because it's the cartoon and the gravity doesn't apply the same way. So you're just like, yeah, whatever. Like obviously that's not how gravity works. Same thing with movies, TV shows, and video games and books even. So you have that believability, and there's a term for it, and I cannot believe I am forgetting this because it's a term that's very commonly used when I used to talk about wrestling. There was a term thrown around, but basically, you believe like plague tale. Yeah, there's these magical rats that shoot up off the ground. They eat everyone. They can flow like water and just whatever. Not a big deal. You've encountered it in the game, and it's been there since the beginning. So yeah, believable. But when you get to the end of the game, it so ramps up everything to the point where you're just like, really? This is just a little bit too much. You've crossed that threshold of believability, and now it's unbelievable, even within the scope of the game. But that's really the only minor flaw of the game. I think everything else is pretty much flawless. The game is stinking difficult, and you'll die way more often than you think you will. But everything else is just so well done. I think there was a couple things where I would have liked a little bit more explanation. At the very, very beginning of the game, this is very light spoilers because it's not really a spoiler. It's just the beginning of the game. Amicia and Hugo are traversing the countryside, taking a stroll, and you stumble across this abandoned castle. So you kind of go in, kind of check it out. You fall in and you have to leave, like the part of the stairs or the floor crumble, and you land in like a little farm area, and you're like, oh, well, this kind of smells, and we need to leave. And then you realize people are dead inside the castle that were just recently slain. And so you have to get out. And then there's these beekeepers that have been killing everyone or something. I can't remember exactly what's going on, but you don't ever really get closure of what's actually happening. As far as I know, and my wife was paying attention too, she was like, what happened to those people? Like that very beginning story, like gets kind of cut off, you leave and you never return to that section ever again. You never really reference it either. And so it's just like what the heck happened? That was kind of like out of nowhere. It's almost like a cold open in a TV show where something just some main thing happens and it's really funny or, disturbing or whatever, and then it's never referenced again. Like it never even happened. And it's just like, wow, that's kind of weird because I was actually interested in that thing and now you're just going, yeah, whatever. This thing. So anyways, but that's A Plague Tale Requiem. I think it is another fantastic game. It was on Game Pass too, so I didn't actually have to buy it, and I played through the whole thing. Got most of the secrets and the collectibles and all that, and my wife and I played through that game, and it was just so interesting. She did not want to play through that first game when I first talked about it, but when she sat down and watched me play it, even though it's a little bit gross and disgusting with the rats and the dead bodies and all that, and the gore, which is super gory, she was so enthralled by this storyline of it and the story that they tell. And again, the voicing, just brings a believability to it that is just, it captures you, it enthralls you. And so I I adore that game. And I said it in my review, which you can go check on gameordie.net. But this one Plague Tale Requiem 100% would have been my game of the year for 2022 if I played it last year. If I wanted to and say, screw the rules, it's my rules anyways, I do what I want, I would retroactively change it to my game of the year, but I'm not going to. Elden Ring was my game of the year because I played through and finished that game last year. I did not play Plague Tale until mid-January of 2023, and I'm just not going to make my stuff like that. I want to have some rules. I think there needs to be rules in, you know, society or whatever you want to call it, but like if I'm setting a, hey, you know, games for the best games of 2020 that I played, if I didn't play it in 2020, it can't be the best game, right? But it definitely would have been if I played it. It's just I didn't play it for the fact that I knew I didn't have the time. My wife didn't have the time, and she wanted me to sit next to me and watch me play through that game. So I wasn't going to do that to her and just say, "Ah, I played through it without you." No, it's something we love doing together, and so we played through it together, even if we had to wait until the next year to play it. But oh, I've been going for a little bit here. I did not expect this podcast episode to be this long, but I've had a really fun time. I like talking about video games, and now I've got to go take care of a bunch of animals. So, with that, this is going to be the end of episode 65 for the Game or Die podcast. Like I said a moment ago, if you want to check out the reviews for the games that I played, I wrote my Plague Tale review just a couple nights ago after I finished it. It took me like an hour to write it. And I really think that's probably one of my better reviews for the fact that I kind of dive deeper into some of the subject matter of that game. So if you want more thoughts and my real feelings written down and expanded upon of that game, go check it out, gameordie.net. And that's going to be this podcast. I've been your host, Ryan Moore. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, podcast.gameordie@gmail.com, I believe. I can't remember. Whatever. But you can also drop a line in the comments or whatever. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you next time.